Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be doing a November reading wrap up, and I feel like November for me has actually been a really good reading month. I read 8 books this month and I'm going to give you some more detailed in-depth reviews of each of them. So to start the month off with was Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I don't know why it took me so long to read this book because I absolutely ate it up. I won't lie, the first half of the book is definitely very slow, and I think that is the case with a lot of fantasy books. Like, you are doing a lot of world building, you are getting to know the place a little bit more, and you are having to figure out how everything works basically. So it was definitely a trust the process kind of thing, but once I did get into it, I absolutely loved it. The grumpiness of Kingfisher is just genuinely insane, but it is very much that I need to know where this is going to go. Obviously there's the backstory and things like that, so if you don't know what this book is about, it's the female main character is basically living in what she assumes is the human world, and they've kind of heard stories about Fae and things like that, but they don't really think that it's real. They just think it's stories that your parents tell you to be good basically. And her family have died. The only person she has left is a brother, and they are living in poverty. They're having to steal, they're having to, you know, basically do everything they can to survive, so to speak. And this one day she's stealing from one of the Queen's guards. She gets found out for it and she gets sent to the castle to die. But within doing this, she basically opens a portal to another realm. Kingfisher comes in, finds her, takes her back to the Fae world, and they basically realise that she is an alchemist and she can manipulate metal and that type of thing. So they need her to strike up a bargain with Kingfisher so that she can help save his people, and in return he will bring her brother to the Fae realm. He doesn't bring her brother though, he brings Carrion, who is the smuggler who she hates, but also is one of the best characters in the book. His humour is fucking insane, but the slow burn, the hate that Kingfisher has for her, the hate she has for him is just insane, like genuinely insane. And I did actually end up reading Brimstone, which is the second book in the series. The thing about this one was I enjoyed it, but I know I definitely didn't enjoy it as much as Quicksilver. And also I did find that a little bit slow as well, and normally with the second book I wouldn't expect it to be that slow. The ending, what the fuckity fuck was that ending? Like, what do you mean? I don't want to spoil it for anyone that's not read it, but what the fuck do you mean? And again, I'm not going to tell you what Brimstone's about, because if you haven't read Quicksilver, I would end up spoiling Quicksilver for you. So if you've read Quicksilver, I definitely think you should read Brimstone, but I think similar to Quicksilver, you just need to give it a little bit of a chance to get into it a little bit more, which, as I said, you wouldn't really expect from a second book in my opinion. Being said, I think a lot of the time I just wanted to see a lot of Ceres and Kingfisher together, and obviously it didn't necessarily happen at certain points, which again is understandable. But yeah, I didn't enjoy it as much, but it was kind of okay. The next book I actually read after Quicksilver was Direbound. Now, a lot of people are comparing this, well, not comparing, but saying it's a little bit similar to Fourth Wing, but with dire wolves. It was, but I definitely preferred Fourth Wing. It was okay. I think I rated it 3 stars because the female main character was just pissing me off, to be completely honest. I don't know what it was. She was so gullible. Again, if you've not read it, there is like this grumpy sort of character that you want to, well, personally, I like the morally grey guys, so I wanted her to end up with him, but she's with the prince, and I don't know, it just wasn't for me. Like, the whole time I was thinking, I just want you to realise what the fuck's going on, which in fairness to the author, I then ended up reading it and wanting to read on, but I just wasn't as invested or gripped as I was with Fourth Wing. That being said, I think I'm probably going to prefer the second book in the series, so I will read that. I just didn't enjoy it. Maybe I was comparing it too much to Fourth Wing, I'm not sure, but a lot of people have had very, very good reviews about this book. And as I said, if you don't know what Fourth Wing's about, so you're thinking, what is it about? Her sister gets kidnapped and she's like, I need to get to the front line. I need to find out who's kidnapped her. they've got a feeling that it's like the vampires that live on the other side, the people they're at war in. So she basically goes to enlist in the army. When she does that, she basically is having to enter one of the contests to bond with a direwolf, but she doesn't want to bond with a direwolf. She just wants to be a soldier and go to the front. Long story short, she does end up bonding with a direwolf who's very grumpy. They don't really get on very well, and, you know, it's obviously a story of this, but at the same time, she has been heavily deceived by people back home. Well, one person in particular. I don't want to ruin it because I actually didn't cotton on to this, so I'm not going to ruin it for anyone, but obviously she's now having to go through this camp, basically, to survive, and obviously end up, you know, on the front line, so to speak. But it is good and I did enjoy it, but for me personally, it just wasn't as good as Fourth Wing. I don't think the direwolves were as good as the dragons in Fourth Wing, in my opinion, but you know, you may enjoy it. After this, then I took a little bit of break from the fantasy world and I read Worth Every Moment by Ray Ryder. If you've not read this series, you really fucking need to. It's billionaire romance. There is a book about each, you know, different character and things like that, and it's so fucking good. This one in particular was friends to lovers, which I know for a lot of people is not their favourite sort of trope, it's not their favourite sort of thing, and I did enjoy it. I did read it in a day. I don't think it was my favourite one of the series for various different reasons, but basically they both like each other. However, because they are best friends, they obviously don't want to cross that line, but then it kind of comes out where she needs help with her work and so does he, so they fake date and that type of thing, but it kind of crosses that line. But then obviously his family, his dad's trying to marry him off to somebody else, and yeah, if you've not read that series, you really do need to. I rated this 3.75 stars. The series I read after this then was the Wolf King series, and again, there's been a lot of hype around this. Again, personally, I very much love a morally grey, dark character. And in this book, again, she is with the nicer character. I'm going to obviously tell you what it's about, but she is a princess of the human world, and her dad basically gets like wolf shifters to fight for their entertainment, and one day she ends up putting a stop to it, and it is the alpha of one of the packs. Cut a long story short, he ends up kidnapping her, but she kind of does want to go because she is trapped. She is basically meant to marry a man who is evil and she doesn't want to, so they take her, but he takes her with an ulterior motive in the sense that I'm going to take her so then I can do a trade, and this trade will basically allow us to win this war, and we will be able to shift at any point. We won't just have to wait till full moon. Obviously, they end up getting quite close, but in the mix of this, there is also a second character, Blake, who is dark, mysterious. You're a bit like, oh, what's going on here with him? And she fucking hates him. He does shady shit, but also at the same time, in my opinion, I think he does challenge her a lot more, whereas Callum does tend to like mollycoddle her a little bit, and I am team Blake, hands fucking down. So obviously the first book is a lot of, you know, world building again. I rated this 3.5. I may even rate it a little bit lower, and I definitely preferred the second book. Again, main being reason we get to see a little bit more insight into Blake. There is a third book coming, and I definitely will read the third book. However, like I said, it's not been one of those series where I've been overly consumed by it. I think I may end up liking the third book a little bit more. In terms of should you read it, there's a lot of people enjoying this book, so I would definitely give it a go. Wolf King for November was 99p on Kindle, and Night Prince is also on Kindle Unlimited, so I don't really see what you're losing there if you've got a Kindle. Like I said, it was okay. Same with Diabound, it was okay. It's nothing for me to scream and shout about, but I did enjoy them. I did read them, so it might be worth a read for you. The next two books after this, so my final two books were Leave Me Behind and Your Knife, My Heart. These are dark military romances, and Leave Me Behind, I would probably say Leave Me Behind is a lot, I wouldn't say a lot, but is more darker than Your Knife, My Heart. That being said, the way Your Knife, My Heart ended, it ended on a cliffhanger, and now I've got to wait for the next book to come out on the 9th of December. We'll talk about Leaving Behind in a second. Anyone that has read Your Knife, My Heart, the trope at the end that's going to be in the second book is I hate that trope. I absolutely hate it. And it's kind of putting me off wanting to read the second one. That being said, I also want to know how the second one's going to end. So please let me know if you're the same and you are going to be reading it or not. Both of these are dark military romances. You could read them as standalones, but they are, I wouldn't say interconnected as in the sense that the people in the first book are in the second book, because they're not. Some characters in the first book are mentioned, and the reason for that is because they are set in the dark forces, which is basically the underground of the military. There is different forces that do a lot of shady shit for the government, so to speak, and a lot of them are criminals that are basically given a second chance to redeem themselves and kind of, you know, be let out into the world when they earn their cards and things like that. So the first book, she was already on one of the squads, Riot Squad, but she goes on a mission and her whole squad dies and she is the only like survivor. And because of this, a lot of people are like, well, why did you survive and your squad didn't? What did you do? Etc, etc. And she is basically sent to be on Malum Squad. As she's travelling to be on Malum Squad, she meets two twin brothers. One, Ray of Sunshine, the other, fucking grumpy, okay? She ends up going out with them that night and she has a one night stand with the grumpy one. She's had this one night stand. They both really like each other. They're like, oh my God, what the fuck? And as they're walking back, they kind of realise that they don't really know that much about each other, what they do for work, why she's here. And they both kind of come to the realisation that they are partners in the new job. And he is meant to be lethal. He is meant to be this evil motherfucker that nobody wants to basically know. And also nobody knows his identity. He wears a mask. So obviously she knows his identity. She goes in to join Malum Squad. Not many of them like her. Riot Squad is meant to be the reason why one of the forces members died and why she's having to fill in. So he's basically making her life fucking miserable. As I said, it is dark. It is a bit twisted. He is very morally grey. But by the end, oh my God, the passion that he has for her is just next fucking level. And I genuinely couldn't put the book down. Like, I could not put it down. You need to read it. I rated this 4 stars. The next book is a bit shorter, and as I said, it's split into 2. So again, this is dark military. She's basically having to go to one of the other squads, but in order to do that, she's committed a lot of crimes for her family. Her family's in the mafia, and she was basically like the person that would go and kill people for them and make their lives easier, so to speak. She's in prison. Nolan, who we see in the first book, which is basically the general of it all, takes her, puts her into